Thank you, Amadine, for that report. Of course, there are several people who have been reacting to this, whilst some are arguing in favor of the protest. There are those who are arguing against it and asking that we, have some patience with the government, they say. But despite the federal government's plea for young Nigerians to shelve the August 1st protest, there seems to be no indication that Nigerians are backing down from the protests. In respect of this, governors across the country are taking proactive steps to ensure the safety and security of citizens. In an emergency meeting held yesterday, the Nigeria Governors Forum, NGF, resolved to work closely with security agencies to prevent any potential breakdown in law and order.
Meanwhile, the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, has disclosed that intelligence at military's disposal shows that the protest would be hijacked by some unscrupulous elements. State governors are urging protesters to remain peaceful and avoid any actions that could lead to violence or anarchy. Now, joining us is the former Minister of Youth and Sports, Solomon Dalung. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians.
Good to have you join us. I'm going to start with your reaction to a statement that was made by the Oni of Ife, that says that there's no need for citizens to protest, that the right way is to wait and vote him out, like the Oni of Ife said. So let's get your reactions to that. Do you agree with that narrative? Should Nigerian citizens, instead of expressing themselves via peaceful protest, simply just wait till 2027?
Well, I think the reaction is evidence of disconnection from the reality on the ground, because the youth who are majorly involved in the agitation and organizing of the protest are far ahead of the government and the traditional rulers. So these patients they are now deploying as a strategy should have come long before now, because the protest notice was rolled out about a month ago, and we are barely 3 or 4 days to when the protest is scheduled to commence, and they're now calling for patience. Then they have enough time if there is genuine commitment to tackling the issues the youth have raised. Sadly, the issues were not on the table in terms of this conversation, but patience was just the only thing that the government was emphasizing. What of the issues that are agitating the minds of the people of Nigeria, the poor and the young people, that are basically the factors that were the people driving the protest. So to me, the issue of patience does not at all seems to indicate that they are connected to the reality of the ground.
So when you say that the issue of patience, it doesn't show that they're connected to the reality. What body language or what actions will communicate that they are connected to the reality of the average Nigerian?
They would have been talking from the point of the state of development with the protest. That is where the young people and the demand for the exercise of their constitutional rights beginning from 29th to 1st, depending on the location. But from everything that went, it was just merely of acknowledgement of their recognition by government and being a historical act by government, and then the call for patience. But even on the side of the government, the briefing the traditional rulers claim, or the royal fathers claim to have received from the government, does not at all affect positively what the people are saying. Nigerians are saying that, look, the policy of government has instigated untold hardship, and we cannot survive anymore. That same policy too failed to that the policy too failed to address the issue of insecurity and the issue of the rises of cost of living. So in my mind, I think there was nothing basically that was discussed there that seems to be in touch with the protest.
Yeah, I mean, now we're seeing, conversations between Mr. President and the state governors. We've also seen that he has called traditional rulers to Aso Rock also to meet with him. None of this, seems to be a conversation with the Nigerian people. It's instead speaking with the governors and traditional rulers. And so do you think that that is also getting it wrong? Is that the approach that you would expect from Mr. President now? And why do you think it's taken so much time for Mr. President to maybe address the Nigerian people directly?
This is just a panic reaction because when the young people roll out the notices for the protest, the government, typical of its way of dealing with issues, disregarded it and thought it was merely just a joke. But from development in the country and development elsewhere in Africa, they got jittery and imagine that, look, these protests appear to have taken a unique dimension because of the determination of the young people to proceed with the planned nationwide protest. Therefore, they really now are crumbling and falling on each other, issuing all forms of threats, and assuming that that will definitely get somewhere. But to me, again, it's just mere their normal way of reacting to very serious issues. And I think that there is no sincerity of purpose in what the government is doing and the governors, because none of them make single reference to the demands of the youth. So I don't see it at all as communicating with Nigerians. And the best way I would have thought was for the president to have addressed the nation after engaging with young people. There are youth structures across the country. There is supposedly a ministry now of youth with 2 ministers there. There is also civil society organizations across the country. None of these stakeholders appear to have been engaged. There's some people that the protest is targeted at their attitude and conduct, are the same people coming out now to roll out threats against the protest. So it is sad that we are getting too close to the D-Day and government is just panicking. But I don't see anything that has been done.
And how do you say that we ensure that the effect, I mean, we're not quite over what happened in October of 2020 and the effects of what that protest led to, the turnout. We're not quite over the negative effects of that protest. We know of young people who were unfortunately killed, who lost their lives as a result of that protest. How do we ensure that we do not have a similar result, or we do not have a repetition of what happened in 2020 again, if these protests are to hold?
History is very, very significant because it helps to provide sufficient knowledge about how to deal with situations that are very similar. Therefore, what had happened during the NSAS would have been a positive indication to government that when you have the young people restless, agitated, and are pointing fingers at issues that affect them, you immediately engage them and try to listen to them. But completely there is at all no communication between the government and the young people. So if you are not talking about the fears of possible consequences of what turned out from previous experiences, you are just being hypocritical and insincere, because what happened in the past should have served as enough knowledge for you to deal with future problems. But the government learned nothing from it. Therefore, I think that from my monitoring, close monitoring, engagement, involvement with young people, especially with the current ongoing planned protest, the determination of the young people and the poor on this issue, I mean, the result is very, very high, because the factors driving it are existential. That is hunger, poverty, insecurity, corruption, injustice, and impunity. Now, government should have known that what happened at NSAS was an issue of injustice, a complaint about brutality. What have they done to basically curtail, engage, and ensure that positive steps were taken to have engaged young people and communicated properly the efforts of government, and they prefer to speak to the people of Nigeria and the young people through rosy means. This again indicated that we have learned nothing from what we are afraid of.
All right, former Minister, I want your thoughts also on, or your assessment rather, on the first year, plus of the current administration. How would you say that President Bola Tinubu has fared? And if you're going to rate his performance, from 1 to 10, how would you rate it? And also, will you be protesting, from the 1st of August?
Well, I will rate the government's performance in the last 1 year. If it's between 1 to 10, I would say 3. The government has only scored 3 over 10. Basically, because the government had been more concerned about the deployment of propaganda as a communication, because the media aides of the president deploy more propaganda and then the attack dog strategy more than communication with Nigerians. So there is little or next to nothing about the achievement of the government, except maybe to congratulate the government for building the house of the vice president with about 21 billion, and then to congratulate the president for getting a new aircraft, and also congratulating the members of the National Assembly, for their new SUVs, which cost about 150 million. So those are basically some of the achievements. But for the poor, the need of the government is on the necks of the poor, and they are suffocating. And the government will need to allow the poor to breathe. And honestly, and as a patriot, saying this from the depth of my mind, that the people are suffocating, and the people at least need some space to breathe. And the government should look towards that direction. Whether I will be protesting, yes, I will. I'm a comrade. I've spent 40 years of my life on the streets. I cannot ignore the fact that I'm living among the people. I'm speaking from my house in the center of the people in Jos. I live among the common people. So I am conversant with what they go through. What I even receive daily in my house when people come to me to ask for basic needs of survival. And I have a connection with poor people across the country. Even yesterday, I received reports of people dying from one of the states where the governor had said nobody should come out to demonstrate because the security will deal with the person. About 30 people collapsed and died just as a result of hunger. So there need to be a bit humane in dealing with this issue. So I will identify with the people and deploy my experience to ensure that, the young people are guided to concentrate on their demand instead of allowing their focus to be distracted, and then we will have the problems which we are afraid of. Because if we are not involved to try to guide them, we should not come back and blame them for, driving the country into history.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, will you be out protesting if there's a protest on the 1st?
Of course.
All right, that's what I want to confirm.
Nigerian, because I'm a Nigerian.
Yeah, absolutely. But another thing I want to ask, you were part of the previous administration. You served as minister in the previous administration. What would your response be to people who say that, the administration you served under is part of the major problems that Nigerians are dealing with today? It also mismanaged Nigeria. It, of course, started the trajectory to the current economic crisis that Nigeria is dealing with today. And so yourself and the administration you served under also is part of the failure.
Of course, over 2 years ago, I have come out openly and apologized to Nigerians that the Buhari administration failed to deliver on its mandate, because we campaign on insecurity, fighting corruption, the economy, and addressing the issue of unemployment. And all these promises made to Nigerians were not made. So I admitted and apologized to Nigerians that we failed a party and as a government under President Muhammadu Buhari, which I saw. So, saying or blaming Buhari for what is happening now, is being insincere. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu provided the vice president to Buhari, and he nominated about 7 ministers in that government, who some of them served for 4 years and some served for 8 years. So he doesn't have the moral high ground to blame Buhari, because there is no distinction between Buhari's government and Tinubu government. It was a government that the court presided over. So the problems were created by Tinubu jointly from the beginning to where we are now. President Tinubu and him that if his statement is that Buhari created the problem, he should take Nigerians back to 6 a.m. on the 29th of May. In fact, we will be much happier. Let him reverse this country back to 29th May 2023 at 6 a.m. We will be okay. Nigerians will not even demonstrate. It will reverse all back. So the blame game is untenable. It is lack of purpose, leadership, and sincerity of purpose.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are going to be counting down. The next few days will determine the trajectory of how this nation goes regarding whether or not this protest will hold, and we look forward to having you join us for further conversations. Thank you for your time.
Yes, but with a very strong voice to everybody that is committed to the issue of the protest, that it is possible to achieve whatever your demands are with a peaceful protest. Because Mahatma Gandhi, the founder of peaceful protest in India, got independence for the Indian people through a peaceful protest.
Okay, sir. We'll have to have you join us again. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I believe that we've gotten out the key parts of the conversation, and we look forward to having you join us again as we count down the days. Thank you for your time with us, sir. All right.